This is Things You Might Have Heard, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne. And today, right now, in moments as I speak, I'm going to give you yesterday's latest in information, politics, events, and pop culture news. This thing right here is your go-to supplemental source, at least the Conversation Project is. Go-to supplemental source for both mainstream and unconventional news stories that you may have missed out, with a little added context here or there. 8 stories in the queue for this morning that were vetted by U.S. Conversational and crafted into this newscast by me. We'll explain how the vetting process goes, how we got the 8 stories for this thing, plus some fun stuff at the end. You must stick around for the fun stuff. It's your dessert. You've got to eat your broccoli. No, broccoli is delicious to get your ice cream. It's just how it works out here. Remind you that our website is theconversationproject.com. This is theconversationproject.com. More information about what we do around here all day, every day. And email address is theconversationinbox@gmail.com. So you can email us and tell us what to do. Literally, just like for the feeds, which we'll explain in a bit. Right now, let's get into the Tuesday, February 20th edition of Things You Might Have Heard, because it's about news time. Let's get into it right now. These stories aren't in any particular order, although we will tell you what the top stories are because they kind of make a difference in your perspective. But they're just kind of how they laid out in the 8 that we picked out from our top 15. We'll explain that all in a minute. A lot of explaining beforehand. Let's get into the actual news stories, shall we? So we can actually get some work done this morning. Headline number 1. And this is one that we teased yesterday. We'll explain the teasers as well. But the headline for this story reads like this. Beyonce becomes first black female artist to appear on Billboard Country Album Airplay chart with a solo song in nearly a decade. Very long, very distinct, and very detailed in what we're saying. She's the first black female artist in a long time to get on the Billboard Country Airplay chart with a solo song in nearly 10 years called Texas Hold'em. And the song just kind of came out last week, and it's got that vibe to it. Also, the acapellas out there, so there'll be all sort of weird remixes to that one. It highlights just how big Beyonce is in the music industry and things that she actually has not accomplished, she can accomplish as well. Now, yes, Darius Rucker is a big time country star. He's a black male artist doing single stuff. And yes, there are plenty of female artists that have been showcased in the last couple of years of black female artists who have done stuff. The big thing is a lot of them are leaving because they're not getting the airplay and getting the attention that they think should. And most of them that are in groups, not a single. And she's Beyonce because, hell, she's Beyonce. She do whatever she wants to because she is Beyonce. Country Beyonce is, Sasha Fierce is one thing. Country Beyonce is a totally other animal. And apparently, Country Beyonce don't give a damn and going to do what she want to do. Breaking barriers, setting records, and being Beyonce. Our second story is actually the top story of the day by lots. In fact, this is a ranking. We've had a couple stories this week, this month that have been sort of rankings for top of the year because there's been so much response to it. I'm not sure why this one got so much response, but here's your headline. Candace Owens says black women don't like Taylor Swift because she's giving Karen, that's a quote, and Travis Kelce is just using her. Now, this goes into a really weird, really deep, really kind of crazy kind of window. Now, let's talk about Candace Owens because this ultimately is a story about her, although she's talking about Taylor Swift and getting sort of the pub from that one. Candace Owens is a person who I used to sort of, not even so, you have a jokingly thing when she says something like, I want to hug her, make her feel better. But she's becoming, or has already was there, and I just kind of got tired of trying to use her as a punchline herself, a kind of a dangerous person. Now, she has a very small, in reality, a small sort of following where she is. She's not Beyonce by any means, but the people who listen to her and the reason why people listen to her are pretty immense, and there's issues with that. Her thing with Candace Owens, the thing with Taylor Swift, is that she called her a toxic feminist. The relation with Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl winning tight end Travis Kelce thrice is all fake. She is kind of being in the know because she's known for having all these famous boyfriends. He is using her for exposure, although he was pretty well exposed beforehand. Campbell Soup, there you go. And the whole thing is the fact that she's sort of Karen-ish. Also, the fact that Travis Kelce tends to date black women. So this is essentially a departure for Travis Kelce, even though he had his issues with his, culture appropriation haircut, having, lines in his fade and stuff like that. Why are we talking about Candace Owens? Because you people literally want to talk about Candace Owens. She was by leaps and bounds the most the most engaged story of one of three of so far this year, one of two this month that basically said, you guys want to talk about this story. I'm not even sure why. This was posted literally as a stopgap because I had to post something. I was pretty sure this was going to get blown over because I thought the Candace Owens sort of vibe with the Conversation project was kind of lost. You guys either care a lot about Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, or a whole lot more about Candace Owens than I thought. And that is why this story will probably be topped this week at the weekly wrap up. We'll explain that when we get later in the week. But Candace Owens is in the news for chatting up Taylor Swift, keeping her name in her mouth. Our third story for this morning, headline reads, truckers for Trump to boycott driving to New York City after $355 million fraud ruling. This was a story that I thought was going to be topped this morning. This is what going to be tops. Beyonce was middle ground because it was what it was, and it's basically a week old story, but we finally got around to it. A few days ago, or last week, there was a ruling against Donald Trump for $355 million for essentially the loss of his business, and he had to pay back that's basically what he owed in damages. A trucker went online, went every freaking where to try to talk about a boycott for New York City. So March 1st, essentially, truckers ain't coming into the city. Now, there's already a potential boycott for truckers, going to that one McDonald's that was going to stay open, or that one Chick-fil-A that was going to stay open, all day long. This one is another thing. Now, there are many people out there who are like, this is a good thing. We're not going to do it. And then there are truckers who are like, New York City is kind of a big market. It's not going to happen. We can't just not go to New York City. We will see what happens when the call to action actually comes to fruition, or not in a few weeks, about a week or so, 29 days in February. Let's go to the next story. At number 4, 4 killed, 5 wounded in shooting at Waffle House in Indianapolis. Police say. Police responded to a report of a person being shot and found 5 apparent gunshot victims. 1 woman died at the hospital and 3 men and women were treated in stable conditions. But a man was in critical condition still after this thing. This happened. This is a small, tiny story because it's one more shooting, one more small place, and the Waffle House is basically the beacon that makes it interesting. But it's one more shooting and one more small place of a lot of shootings in a lot of small places. And after all, eventually they add up to a whole lot of shootings in a lot of small places that don't seem so small with all of the shootings. At number 5 this morning, Paramount Plus and Peacock might be the next streaming platforms to merge. Recent reports suggest that Comcast, who owns Peacock, and Paramount Global, the company behind Paramount Plus, may be working to put those two together, Peacock and Paramount Plus, in a merger. Now, remember, we're talking a lot about Paramount and Warner Brothers and Fox and ESPN doing all they can. I guess Peacock and Paramount aren't so much in this WB with the new streaming sports thing. That, of course, would be a new streaming sports thing, a brand new streaming service to top on top of this. This would be a merger of streaming services, of streaming companies to make things easier to work with. Now, the Peacock library and sports and shows, and Paramount, essentially CBS, has a whole bunch of articles that would make this a very major merger and very major platform for the actual content, and probably raise the prices up by $5 for the total package. We'll see how this one plays out going forward, and whether it's going to be something that the FCC, if they can control this, or the Federal Trade Commission, which actually can call this something that is going to be bad for consumers. Because right now, the reason why a lot of these things aren't merging and aren't making new things is they cost more money for consumers. That is bad for the consumers. Is this bad for consumers? Capital One is buying Discover in a $35.3 billion deal. Capital One Financial Corp has announced its plan to acquire Discover Financial Services, a significant all-stock deal valued at $35.3 billion. So the question I really had for this was, who's got $35 billion on the shelf to pay for this? It's going to be all stock. It's going to happen that way. The merger is going to represent a major consolidation in the U.S. financial sector, combining two of the country's prominent credit card issuers. Capital One is backed by Warren Buffett, so that means the big guy is winning on this one, and so we probably have a lot of folks who make this thing happen. Now, if you're a Discover card holder and know that Discover cards work different than regular Visas and MasterCards, you will know this may be a different thing for you. How will Discover actually soldier on? Will it actually be a separate card going forward with its separate benefits? I guess we'll only find out once the merger happens, if it happens. These things must be regulated, must be combed out. So we'll see how well this one plays out in the very near future or long future, since sometimes these things take a long time to actually play themselves out. And number 7 this morning, John Oliver offers to pay Clarence Thomas $1 million a year if he resigns from Supreme Court. On this edition, last week's edition of John Oliver's show, he had a pretty big deal. The late last week tonight host offered up a pretty sweet deal to Justice Clarence Thomas if he offers to resign. Now, technically, this sounds a lot like a bribe, but you can go with it because he's not going to take it. $1 million a year. $1 million a year. $1 million a year. That's a salary. He gets $1 million a year to spend as he wants to, plus a luxury motorhome coach to drive around into vacation in. Sounds like a pretty big deal. I know, of course, John Oliver is known for large stunts like this, and this is one that we're pretty sure he won't have to pay off on, but it brings up the conversation. It brings up a big piece of conversation. And number 8 story for this morning. Going back to New York City and going back to Donald Trump and what's going on, Kevin O'Leary says he will no longer invest in loser New York after Trump verdict. I should have put these side by side, but let's a little bit inside baseball. Had some issues with an extra story, so I had to move some things around to make it work. So we didn't count very well in our top 15 and had an extra story in there to kind of pull from. But Kevin O'Leary is also jumping on the Trump bandwagon and the Trump I got beat by in court bandwagon by saying he's done with New York City. Now, Kevin O'Leary is a bit of a controversial fence here in the get-go. No one can say he doesn't have money, he can't make money, but someone can say the way he makes money, not even a little shady, a whole lot shady. Buying up companies, basically stripped them down, essentially being a private equity firm of all of its own, and just taking all the equity out and just dealing with the money. And of course, selling cameos and sometimes not so great advice in for free, because he has this air of being a shark, air of being a dragon, air of being someone who actually has made things happen. He's got a lot of money, so that's half the battle right there. Kevin O'Leary says New York is no longer a good place to invest because of Donald Trump, or because of the verdict against Donald Trump. Some may say the verdict against Donald Trump makes it a better place to invest because he won't be there to deal with. My words and some other words as well. Let's go to our apologies, errors, and omissions section. Yes, we are still having issues getting these buttons pressed for these pictures. I know. If you're watching the video, it gets a little confusing. It's all that stuff. But for one story we're not talking about that you got to maybe go look for because the feeds will probably have it buried down at this point. A New York City lawmaker is trying to ban Tide Pods and laundry sheets, not because kids are eating them, but because they're not green enough. So look for the story. Essentially, the initiative is to make more greener stuff. So doing laundry sheets, your dryer sheets, and Tide Pods themselves, not very eco-friendly. So someone's trying to ban them in New York City specifically. They don't want you to do business with Trump. They don't want you to bring your trucks in. They don't want to do anything. And they want to get rid of your Tide Pods. It is what it is, the oppressive New York City. And Chick-fil-A must stay open all day long, although that's technically not New York City. Our teaser story for this morning is a story that we can chat up tomorrow if you deem it worthy. The story headline for the teaser story reads like this. Melania Trump used her official office for the White House so infrequently that she converted it into a gift wrapping room. She converted it. She didn't need the office, so she went in there to wrap up gifts that had to come in and go out through the White House. Why will we talk about this story? Well, you will tell me the story is worthy of chatting up by engaging it in our feeds. The feeds are our links on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/This Is Conversation Project and Twitter.com, or X.com, I should say, /TH_conversation. Every 50 minutes or so, we post a new headline for you to engage in, read the story, and get into it. They're not necessarily time sensitive. We don't do breaking news per se. We try to make things as relevant as possible. And sometimes, like Beyonce story, which is technically a 3-4 day story, should have been late last week, it gets a while to get it in there to talk about. But when it's there and people are talking about it, you get a chance to let us know what we're talking about here on this show here. Engage in the story and just like, love, hate, share, and click on whatever emoji face you want to. The higher engagement score that a story gets, better chance we have of talking about it in the next iteration. Tomorrow, we'll have 8 stories for you. That'll be Wednesday, from the top 15 stories of today. If this is a top 15 story, it's more than likely going to happen. Beyonce's story today about her singing country was a teaser story. It was a top 15 story. We talked about it. It's just like that. You put the words in my mouth every single weekday morning. You can do that by voting up Melania and her gift wrapping room, which was supposedly the First Lady's office, if you choose. We also ask you to choose to go to our sponsorship page, which is at conversationproject.com/sponsors. And if you want to go straight to hostage tape, and they can take care of you and your snoring and your sleeping and your breathing. Hostage tape is kind of the silliest thing you've seen out there, but you've seen the ads all over the place. If you're watching, like I do, watching some of the business bloggers out there, now all of a sudden, things are in waves. The hostage tape people are now taking over with their spot, popping in all of the video podcasts and audio podcasts as well, video, so you can see the hostage tape. What you do is put this very comfortable mouth tape on your mouth, and you can't breathe through your mouth because your mouth is taped together. You breathe through your nose. If you don't want to put the tape on your mouth, they have these nose strips that help you open up your nose. They help you with exercise for effective breathing, help you with just effective breathing in general. And if you're a sleep issuer, there you go. Save your marriage. Maybe save your life. Check it out at this. It's a conversationproject.com/hostage tape. This is a conversationproject.com/hostage tape, and get hostage tape. And what you're going to do, you're going to realize once you buy one small package, you got to go for the big package, because right now people are buying the massive packages of hostage tape. They're buying the multi-packs, and they're selling out big time. You're going to realize you love it. You're going to buy it in bulk as well. Trust me on this one. It is hostage tape. Conversation Project lives online at this. It's conversationproject.com. This is our pledge drive month, our month of love. So let me go ahead and get into the love, and which is essentially what we do for promoting us anyway. But because it's a long list, let's get into the calls to action to help out the Conversation Project. If you want to go to our website, we've said it a bunch of times, one more time with feeling. This is conversationproject.com. Our links on Facebook and Twitter /X are our feeds, and that's where you tell us what stories are engaging, and we know what stories to talk about. Facebook.com/this is Conversation Project, and Twitter.com or X.com /conversation. I'm not changing that slide anytime soon, because when you click on X.com, it transfers to Twitter. It's one of those things. On TikTok and YouTube are places you can find us for videos. TikTok and YouTube specifically. If you're not watching us on YouTube for the long form, TikTok and YouTube Shorts are where you can find us for our hot takes that pop up, and some of the newer things we're doing, just chopping up some of the articles that we're doing every single day. We're testing new content, doing more things, making it more easier to get things done here, and more things that you like more of that have more meat into them. I find as though the hot takes are pretty hot, sometimes you want to really get into more context, and it takes at least 90 seconds to do that. 60 seconds is hard to get into, so we're working on that stuff. The podcast, go to our website and click on our podcast link, and we have links to various podcatchers, including, just go on your own and look for us on your various podcatchers as well. You can subscribe to our stuff, be a partner, if you will, and subscribe to monthly donations by going to buymeacoffee.com/jcliffandpayne or clicking on our partners page. Also, the partners page are links to Venmo and Cash App, which is just J. Cliff Payne. Why did I go through all that long list of stuff? In February, every single year, we do the month of love, the pledge drive stuff, to get more cash into the coffers to get things done. We want to get more people to work on their stuff, more independent folks, more regulars, we'll say, not so much full-time. We're not making full-time money in this thing. This thing is a lost leader, but it is something that if more resources came in, because other folks have more folks that are supporting them, we could shout you out. We can do more things as well. That's what we're looking for from the Conversation Project and from you. So if you deem us worthy, consider doing one of those calls to action. Now, we always tell you that the free stuff is just as good. So go to the Conversation Project. This is conversationproject.com, and check out our website. Go to our feeds and let us know what stories to talk about, and email us at the conversation inbox at gmail.com to let us know what we can do to work on. That is, if that's what you got, we can work with that. We appreciate that. So let's get to the fun stuff for this morning. Fun stuff on this morning, the 20th of February. And we always begin with birthdays. And while we had more relevant birthdays, more or less in the news for the day, to include folks going out there, the folk we really are celebrating is Charles Barkley, who is having a renaissance of his own right now, because he's on TV getting paid a lot of money. One, to kind of, yell at Draymond Green in the All-Star game. 2, to hang out with Gayle King and lose money for CNN, essentially, and just being Charles Barkley. Love for Trevor Noah as well, who's 40 years old on the day, hitting a big 4-0. And Rihanna, who's 36 years old, all she did was do her Super Bowl performance with a baby in her belly and then create a human. That's all she did lately. All that stuff. Your history lesson for today. We go back to 1997, where the Trinity Broadcast Network announced it was dropping singer Pat Boone. Remember this? From Gospel America, or Pat Boone's Gospel America show, after he recorded a album of heavy metal songs and appeared on the cover and the American Music Awards in a black leather jacket with studded dog collar. Now, if you remember, not so long ago, Dolly Parton was drafted, if you will, because they had to pull her into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she was like, I'm not really rock and roll, and they're like, yeah, you are. And so she made a rock album, and people love it. Pat Boone put a little rock and roll in his music, and Trinity dumped him. This was, of course, 1997. We still love some Pat Boone and stuff, some dog collar Pat Boone as well. By the way, today is National Leadership Day. The aim of National Leadership Day is to include the values of leadership in each of our lives. Each one of us can talk about what leadership means to us, how we lead folks, how we are like to be led, and instill more great leadership values. It's also Cherry Pie Day, so if you just want to have cherry pie, you're off the hook. Today, Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. That's the number 24. I am Jay Cleveland Payne. Thank you so much for being with us for our edition of this edition of this one, things you might have heard. Make sure you are following us in the feeds and checking out the email to let us know what to do going forward. And if you deem us worthy, go to our partnerships page and see if there's a way you would partner with us for help on what we got going on. Stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task for all the great things you're here to do. I love you so much. I need you guys to just be great. We need you as subscribers and watchers and listeners, but we need you to just be great people. I'm going to very short side note. Yesterday was a very long day. It turned out to be a very frustrating day, and I've got to have some conversations with people about frustrations, which I'm not happy about, the conversations part and their frustrations. Try to do what you can to have as great a day as possible. This comes from Mr. Grumpy Face. I know. But do what you can to try to, even if you're not having a great day, alleviate some of the stress on other people just out there, because it's great. And sometimes, even when you still continue to have not such a great day, you being a dim light or a shady light or a light in the shadows for someone else can make someone's day. And the fact that you probably have a grumpy face on while you're doing it makes it a great story as well. Be a great story. Be a great person. Do great things. Love you. Mean it. Let's do this thing again tomorrow, shall we? I think we shall. What a Wednesday edition of Things You Might Have Heard. Based on your feedback and the feeds, we'll check this thing out tomorrow.